The other two went to my balance center. I spent the next 4 months learning to walk again in the rehab. I had to drop out of the movie, obviously. I couldn't go back and do the movie. And I just remember pushing myself beyond what people were telling me that I could and couldn't do, when doctors would tell me what I should do and shouldn't do. And I went back down to New Zealand after 4 months. I walked on the set. The crew obviously knew that things were bad. And the studio let out the fact that I had the aneurysm. They didn't let out the story about the strokes, which I'm grateful for that. I didn't want people to know about the strokes, and I'm glad they didn't tell anybody about the strokes, because I didn't know what my recovery was going to be. I had no idea. Those first 4 months were absolutely brutal, and me just trying to just learn to walk again and push myself. And on top of everything else, I had a vibration sound in the back of my head that went 24 hours a day for almost a full year. Every single day, 24 hours a day, there was this buzzing sound, this low humming vibration generator sound. It drove me absolutely crazy. And I told my wife, I knew it was my brain probably trying to rewire itself. But I told my wife, I said, you know what? I said, first of all, I'm not going to commit suicide, but I never understood suicide until now. Because there are people that aren't as strong-willed as I am. I'm a very strong-willed person. I push myself harder than, I'm my own worst critic, trust me. But I said, there are people, there's no way people can handle what I'm going through right now, going through their lives right now. It was enough for me just to get to the bathroom for those first few months. It was enough for me just to walk a block and then 2 blocks and keep pushing myself to try to walk and get myself better again. I didn't drive for almost 2 years. I didn't drive. The first year I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the stimulation. I couldn't handle the cars going by, people going by. I couldn't go to a restaurant because of the noise and all the conversations going. My brain would just get confused and shut down. I started suffering migraines. I never had migraines before in my life. I had panic anxiety attacks that lasted for at least a year. Each one would come and go, but they went on for a good year and a half. And it was things that I just felt like I was naked in a way. I felt like I was exposing myself, and I didn't want people to see that I wasn't this big, strong guy anymore. And it was, I think being in New Zealand was very important for me. It was very important to be away and out of the limelight of Hollywood and paparazzi, because that didn't happen down there. So it gave me a chance to recover. You know, I used to joke about Hercules because, you know, he always saves people, but, you know, in a way he saved me because it gave me a purpose in life. It gave me motivation to get out there and keep working and keep pushing and keep pushing. My first day on the set, I went on the set and the crew was just in shock to see me because I lost up 15 pounds of muscle because in 4 months I haven't been able to work out. And they sat me on this log and I basically just said like 3 lines, and they just did, you know, to help the show, they'd keep it on the air because, let's face it, they still had 2 more years of my contract, and the studio didn't want to lose the contract. They, you know, you'd like to say they have compassion towards their actors, but they really don't. It's show business, right? So it really comes down to them, you know, wanting to keep the show alive, so they did it with stunt casting. If you don't know what stunt casting is, that's when you bring in people that people know and they keep the show going. And they did a lot of flashback episodes, right? Sit on a boulder and say, hey, remember that time I fought the Hydra, and they'd cut to some Hydra episode I shot years ago. And that's pretty much what they had to do to keep the show alive and keep it going. So it was tough. And I just remember constantly fighting with myself and fighting with people around me. And my wife actually finally talked me into going seeing a psychiatrist. And at that point, I was ready to do anything and everything. So I did. I went to see this guy. His name is Dr. Stutz. And I got to say, he was amazing. I only saw him like 3 or 4 times. But he cut right to the chase. He said, you know, all your life, you thought you were Hercules. I said, no, I didn't. He goes, yeah, you did. You did. You were, you know, you had things that went, you know, you did this through your life with sports, and you did this, and you know, you played this guy on TV and stuff like that. Well, you were in this bubble, and the big lightning strike came and opened you up. He says, do you believe in God? And I said, I do believe in God. He goes, what was that voice that told you not to let him crack your neck? And I said, well, I believe it was God. Why else would that voice be there? It doesn't make any sense for that voice to be there when the guy that's never cracked my neck in 8 years. And it took me a long time to forgive myself because of anything. What I learned out of this was you listen to that voice. I mean, I've got atheist friends that say it wasn't God. And I go, then what do you want to call it? Call it a gut feeling. How many times do you walk down the street at night by yourself and you walk down a road and you're going to take a shortcut and you go, nah, I'm not going to go that way. That's something telling you not to go that way. You can call it what you want, but there's a reason why you heard that voice in your head saying don't go that way. So Dr. Stutz told me, he said, I want to do something for you, I want you to do something every day for me. It's called the grateful prayer. And I do it every day. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in your car, you can do it when you get up in the morning, you do it, you know, it can be one thing, it can be 10 minutes worth, it can be an hour, it's up to you, where you're grateful that you have a pillow. You're grateful you have hot water. You're grateful that you have a car. You're grateful you have a place to call home. You're grateful, because you know, we get so involved in our own little lives, and this blame game that's going on in America right now has just got me sick to my stomach. I'm tired of it, because I went through it too. Blaming, you know, I went through depression and anger and blaming other people. How can I blame other people for my strokes? It's not their problem, it's my problem. And I had to get to a place in my life where it's like, you know, take control of your life. I mean, the doctors saved my life, there's no question about that, but Dr. Silverman, it's still called a practice. So, guys, you don't have all the answers. The brain has got to be something that's got to be still a mystery to a lot of people. We're learning more and more about it all the time. But, you know, I had 2 neurologists that gave me that said, look, after 8 months, wherever you are in your recovery, it's pretty much what's going to be it. You're not going to have, you have to live with that the rest of your life. Well, after 8 months, I can tell you folks, I wasn't doing that good. And I said, there's no way. There's no way. It's got to be better than this. There's got to be more waiting for me than this. I started doing everything. I did what the doctors told me to do, but I added Eastern medicine. I started meditation. I started yoga. I started acupuncture. I think all those things combined, I think a lot of it was just me pushing through. I put myself in situations like I would go to a loud restaurant. I said, I know this is going to wipe me out. It's going to give me a migraine. I'm going to feel crappy. I'm going to have dizzy spells. But I'm going to do this. And I kept pushing myself. My wife said, why are you doing this to yourself? And I said, because it's the jock in me. It's the no pain, no gain. If I put myself in a cocoon and I don't put myself out there, I will not get better. And that's where the title of the book comes from. It's not a true strength. Hercules wasn't true strength. It was me with a bunch of, you know, stunt guys making me look like I was a big stud, you know. So the reality is finding true strength within yourself. And one thing that I knew that I wanted to do was, in getting this book out, was hopefully inspire people. Get people to say, you know what? We get other people always setting limitations for us. Don't let others set limitations. Push yourself past what you think. I've had so many letters already from people telling me that my book has been inspirational to them for so many different levels. Not only for, like, maybe they had an uncle that was sick, but for themselves as a human being and as a person. And that was the biggest reason for me, ultimately, in writing this book, because my wife was right. It has been an inspirational story. The book's been out since October. I'm getting letters, emails, Twitters, Facebooks, all this stuff from people that are just amazing to me. And I've already been around the country, and I'm going to continue going around the country. I'm going to be the keynote speaker at the American Heart Association in Florida at the end of January. And well, thank you. Thank you. And I'm excited to go down there and talk and tell my story. The Chiropractic Association is freaking out because here's the weird thing. I was flying to New York. The book was just about to come out. I did 70 interviews in New York over 4.5 days. And I'm on the flight in LA, and I'm flying to New York. And the guy next to me is looking at his iPad, and he goes, excuse me, you're Kevin Sorbo. I said, yeah, I am. He goes like this. There's a big article on me on his iPad. He goes, a friend just sent this to me. I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm the head of the Chiropractic Association of America. So we had an interesting conversation with a 5-hour flight. And so he goes, you're going to run us all out of business. And I said, well, I'm just being honest about how it happened and what had happened. I have 2 neurologists who believe that that was the cause of it. The other 2 are still up in arms about it. You know, they're like going, that could have been and couldn't have been. Because that maneuver in itself happens on average about 4 people a year in America, just having your neck cracked. Let's face it, you got a better chance of being in a car wreck or something, but still, there's a chance, there's like 4 people a year that can have a small stroke from that crack on the neck. But it depends on what their artery, if they're smaller than they should be, and there's whatever, there's different reasons why it happens. But for me, I know it's because where my aneurysm was, it was so close to here, it made those clots basically act like salmon and swim upstream with the violence of that crack. Now, was it the chiropractor's fault? You know what, with the pressure that was building up in there, I could have raised my arm and clenched my fist and maybe released some clots up there, because it was at that point. It wasn't that crack that made this open up. It had already opened up that day, and it was already starting to spit the clots out. So I told the chiropractor, you know, I said, look, I still go to chiropractors, I just don't let them crack my neck. I didn't like it before I got sick, so. I think what I'd like to do right now, because I know I'm going to start getting repetition in here with some of the questions people have to ask. So if there's a microphone floating around, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to take your questions and see if I can ramble on an appropriate answer for you. Because there's more to the story.
I want to thank everybody for coming this evening, and I especially want to thank you, Kevin, for your unbelievable talk. Seeing you.
There's more, there's more.
A reminder that books are for sale at the back of the room at the end, and there will be autographs and a chance to meet him personally. So please stop by.
Are you doing some questions?
Yes.
I mean,
Eric, can you give me a call?
these people look really mean.
You don't have, is that working, that microphone?